This video is sponsored by Nebula, the educational streaming service created by me and my creator friends. Check out the link in the description or stay tuned to learn more. So we're doing this. Shanghai. Shanghai is among the largest cities in the world, and it has the longest and most heavily used metro system on the planet. It's without a doubt one of mankind's greatest feats of engineering, with over 15 lines and 400 stations built in the span of 30 years, and far more under construction. But given the difficulties finding good maps, information, and RMTransit videos on the system online, far too many people haven't been able to appreciate its incredible scope, challenges, and achievements. And so it only makes sense to change that, and for us to explain it. Let's dive in. I've long planned to make a video about Shanghai's metro because of its incredible size and its over 10 million daily riders, but this has not been a small feat. Even just the outline for this video stretched over 2,000 words long, and took weeks to put together. But beyond that, to talk about the metro, we need to familiarize ourselves with the city it's interwoven with, a city which is constantly evolving. My hope is that after you watch this video, you'll have a much greater understanding of Shanghai, its geography, and the metro system. Shanghai is located to the south of the mouth of the famous Yangtze River on China's east coast, which runs west into central China, weaving through Nanjing, Wuhan, and Chongqing. The city lies 80 kilometers east of Suzhou and north of Hangzhou Bay and its namesake city. Being located on low-lying land near the mouth of the Yangtze, Shanghai is covered in various waterways, and its suburbs are dotted with lakes and perennially flooded areas. The biggest of its internal waterways is the Huangpu River, which divides central Shanghai, also known as Puxi, from the region of Pudong, most famously along the historic building and skyscraper-dotted waterfront of the Bund. Being able to develop a metro for Shanghai meant extensive use of elevated rail construction and modern earth pressure balanced tunnel boring machines that can dig tunnels even through soft and wet soils seen in such a location. You can actually check out a video I did recently visiting one of these massive machines. Shanghai has two massive airports. Shanghai Pudong handles mostly international traffic and moved over 70 million passengers per year pre-pandemic across 5 runways, and is located on the mouth of the Yangtze 30 kilometers southeast of the city center in Pudong. While Shanghai Hongqiao moved nearly 50 million passengers per year of primarily domestic traffic pre-pandemic across its 2 runways, being located approximately 15 kilometers due west of the center. To be clear, all passenger numbers provided for the rest of the video will be pre-pandemic, as I think they better reflect present reality and future stats than data recorded during lockdowns. Speaking of Hongqiao, as it turns out, the airport is co-located with and directly connected to one of the largest high-speed rail stations in the world, Shanghai Hongqiao Railway Station. Hongqiao has over 30 platforms and offers high-speed rail services to numerous destinations across China. Trains serving this station approach on a big horseshoe of high-speed rail tracks, with legs extending off the ends of the horseshoe serving Shanghai's 3 other major intercity rail stations: Shanghai Railway Station, located just about 3 kilometers northwest of the Bund, the recently updated Shanghai West Railway Station, 5 kilometers to the west, and the dramatic Shanghai South Station on the southern leg. All of these entryways to the city are important, not only because it's China's largest and a huge cultural hub, but also because it has major attractions, like a Disneyland park in itself. While this video is focused on the Shanghai Metro, it's worth highlighting Shanghai's various other transport modes, which include ferries, a 7-line trolleybus network that is the oldest continuously operating system in the world and is being updated with battery range extended trolleys which can operate with platform screen doors on BRT routes, as well as a massive fleet of shared bicycles and, of course, high-speed rail service nationwide. So what about the metro? Well, for starters, Shanghai has one of my favorite metro icons in the world, beautifully blending the Metro M and the Shanghai S. And the system currently has 19 lines, 408 stations, and just over 800 route kilometers of track. The system was actually built in large part based on a master plan, not unlike cities such as Santiago, and as the plan was from Sistra, owned roughly half and half by SNCF and RATP, the influence for Shanghai's metro was also from France. We'll divide our discussion of the system's lines into 4 categories to simplify things: north-south cross-city routes, east-west cross-city routes, diagonal and loop lines, and suburban lines which terminate at the edge of the central area. I'm not going to go into great depth about the trains used on the system because I actually previously did a whole video about China's metro trains, which are highly standardized nationwide. I recommend watching that video and then coming back to dive into the north-south lines. The first line in the Shanghai Metro to open was Line 1 in 1993, which moves 1.5 million riders per day on large, but perhaps not large enough, 8-car Type A trains, nearly 200 meters in length. These trains are powered by 1500-volt DC overhead lines, as are the vast majority of metro lines in Shanghai, so from now on, I'll only mention electrification if it differs from the standard. Line 1 runs a total of 36 kilometers with 28 stations, from the southwest to the north, entirely west of the Huangpu River, serving Shanghai South Railway Station and Shanghai Station. In what feels uncharacteristic for a Chinese metro line, portions of Line 1 run at grade, alongside the intercity tracks towards Hangzhou from Shanghai South Station, while to the north the line runs on the lower level of an elevated expressway. What's interesting is that on most of the Shanghai Metro's various lines, during various times of day, reduced service levels, albeit usually still quite high, operate on certain line segments. I wouldn't so much call these different service patterns as much as short turns though, because they generally make all stops, just on a shorter segment of the line. Line 3 opened in 2000 and features 29 stations on a 40-kilometer route that runs from the southern part of the central area to the city's far north, wrapping around the city center on the west and stopping at Shanghai South and Shanghai stations as well as Line 1. Uniquely, despite being in rather central areas, the line travels above ground next to the intercity tracks towards Nanjing, like Line 1. Line 3 moves around 500,000 riders per day with 6-car A-type trains, which are the most common train arrangement on the network. Another line which uses 6-car Type A trains is Line 7, which opened in 2009 and has 33 stations along its 44-kilometer route, carrying roughly 1 million riders per day. Running from Longyang Road in Pudong, where you can connect to the Pudong Airport maglev and several other metro lines, north under the Huangpu on a largely underground alignment through the center of the city and to the northern suburbs, where the line does run elevated. Like all other Shanghai Metro lines and most modern metro lines globally, Line 7 has a modern CBTC signaling system allowing semi-automatic operation and frequent service until around midnight. That being said, some Shanghai Metro lines do see service as infrequent as every 10 or 15 minutes on the suburban ends of the lines late at night, and services end rather early for a vibrant city with lots of nightlife, a lot of times as early as 11 PM, which tends to be a problem across much of Asia. Lines 6 and 8 both opened in 2007. Line 6 runs entirely east of the Huangpu River with its northern section elevated, while Line 8 runs from an elevated section in Pudong underground to the north, before also running along the river, albeit to its north and west, and then crossing the river. Both lines use Type C trains, which are just 2.6 meters wide, standard in Europe, but tight for this fast-growing megacity, especially as trains are just 4 and 6 or 7 cars long respectively. Given that Lines 6 and 8 move 500,000 and 1 million daily riders every single day, they are both chronically overcrowded. I would not want to take these lines to work. In the 2020s, 2 new fully underground north-south lines have opened, flanking the city center on the west and the east, both utilizing 6-car Type A trains. On the west is Line 15, which has 30 stations over 42 kilometers of track and runs from Line 7 at its north end, connecting to Shanghai West and Shanghai South stations, before running along the Huangpu at its southern end, providing transfers to a number of other lines. Some transfers on the Shanghai Metro, like the transfer to East-West Line 2 from Line 15, can be made virtually, which means that the journey is treated as continuous even though you need to walk from one station to another outside of the fare-paid zone. While these aren't too common, transfers are often rough on the system, with long walks between platforms, even at major interchange stations. Fares on the Metro are distance-based, and you can pay with a smart card or with phone apps via a QR code. On the east of the city is Line 18, which is 37 kilometers long with 26 stations. This line provides quite a few orbital connections to other lines in the east of the city, as well as service to southern parts of Pudong, and a connection to the Pudong maglev. A neat feature of the trains on Line 18, also seen on Line 15, are onboard wireless chargers for topping up your phone during a journey, without fumbling with cables. Now let's take a look at the east-west lines on this system. I should say, if you're enjoying this video and want more explainers on Chinese metro systems, leave a comment down below and make sure to subscribe. It's free, and it helps me spread the word about transit systems around the world, from Shanghai to Stockholm. Next up, let's look at the city's east-west metro lines, which number less than the north-south routes. The second line in the Shanghai Metro to open was Line 2 in 1999, and today the line is the most used with nearly 2 million daily riders, making it among the most used metro lines in the world, and busier by itself than famous systems like the Berlin U-Bahn. As with Line 1, 8-car Type A trains are used. The route of Line 2 connects numerous major transportation hubs, most notably both Pudong and Hangzhou airports, as well as the Hangzhou railway station, and the Pudong Airport maglev as it cuts across the center of the city, right under the famous Nanjing East Road pedestrian area. Line 2 is mostly underground with some above ground sections in Pudong. Part of it was actually buried after having initially been built as elevated. And in this same area was Shanghai's former tram system, a gadget-borne technology I covered in another video, which is actually being rightly replaced with bus routes and more metro lines. Following Line 2, there are 3 routes which use 6-car Type A trains, running from the southwest of the city and remaining south of Line 2 until both lines cross in Pudong is Line 9, which also connects to a tram service multiple times, albeit this time the Songjiang tram in the city's southwest. Much of Line 9's 64km, 35-station route is underground, besides a section of track between Songjiang and central Shanghai. Today the route, which opened in 2007, moves roughly 1 million riders per day. Another million-rider per day line is Line 12, which is 40 km long with 32 stations. This line parallels Line 9, running south of it west of the city center, where it turns to run north-south for several stations before turning east again to run parallel to Line 9, before crossing the Huangpu and diving south to end along Line 9. Line 12 opened in 2013 and is fully underground and has platform screen doors at every station. In fact, every station on the Shanghai Metro has platform screen doors or gates for the above-ground stations. I should also say that this line is a great exemplar of the density and scale of the Shanghai Metro system, with 12 consecutive interchange stations in the city center. Line 13 also has roughly 1 million daily riders, with 36 stations running fully underground as with Line 12, and in a mirrored pattern, running north of Line 9 west of the city center, then running several stops due south within the city center and crossing the river, and then running east south of Line 9 into Pudong. Line 13, like many Shanghai Metro lines, was built in large part for Expo 2010, and actually closed after the event to be properly completed. The latest east-west line to open in Shanghai is Line 14 in 2021, which is rather special as it returned to using 8-car Type A trains, and closely follows the central parts of Line 2, hoping to relieve it. Like other new lines such as Line 15 and Line 18, Line 14 is fully underground, and actually all of these lines, despite many viewers probably never having heard of them, are also fully automated. Impressive given their humongous capacity. In fact, Line 14 is also the longest fully automated metro line in China, at least for now. While I love all of these automated lines, unfortunately the trains used on Shanghai's newest metro services aren't all that well optimized for enjoying the view, and appear to prioritize allowing an attendant to take over. Not quite primarily east-west or north-south are Shanghai's diagonal and loop lines, which allow useful connections, all with 6-car Type A trains and around 1 million daily riders. Line 10 is a 45km, 37-station line that opened in 2010 and was actually retrofitted years later for automated operations. The line starts in the city's northeast above ground, before heading below the surface and crossing and roughly paralleling the Huangpu, headed southwest until west of the city's center, serving many of Shanghai's most famous sites along the way. From west of the center, the line splits into 2 branches, with one heading southwest and the other serving Hangzhou Airport and railway station. Unlike metros in North America and much of Europe, when entering the Shanghai Metro and other metros in China, you need to go through security, which isn't great. But on the brighter side of passenger experience, Shanghai Metro is experimenting with reduced AC on the first and last cars of trains, so people can find a carriage that's comfortable for them. Line 11 is the longest line on the Shanghai Metro, at a crazy 82 kilometers, and also has the most stations with a less impressive 39. The line opened in 2009 and has a higher 100km/h top speed to help with the long distances between stations. Traveling from Shanghai Disney and Pudong in the southeast, the line goes above ground with widely spaced stations and cuts west and goes underground before heading north to serve the western central part of Shanghai, stopping at Shanghai West Railway Station before heading northwest as the stations start to spread out again. The line then terminates in 2 branches, which are largely above ground, one which heads north and a longer one which heads west, and will actually connect Shanghai Metro with the Suzhou Rail Transit Metro system later this year, which already has more than 150 stations and 200 kilometers of route just by itself. Interestingly, and given its length, no service on Line 11 actually runs end-to-end, so if you want to travel from end-to-end, you'll have to switch trains at some point. Last up, we have Line 4, which is 34 kilometers long with 26 stations and surprisingly Shanghai's only loop line. The line connects to Shanghai Railway Station and every line that passes through central Shanghai at least once. What's stranger still about Line 4, which opened in 2005, is that it shares its western half, which is the only above ground section on the line, with Line 3, limiting the frequencies on both lines. It wouldn't be an easy project, but quad-tracking the shared portion to allow for more frequency on both routes and cross-platform transfers would be a really valuable project that would probably fit based on what I can see on maps. Unfortunately, this situation with Line 3 and 4 are another reminder that transfers on the system aren't great. Only a couple cross-platform transfers exist out of hundreds of stations, while many stations require long walks from one line to another, which isn't great for a master planned system. At the same time, there are many missed connections, with lines 11, 13, and 14 all missing convenient connections to line 3 and 4 when crossing into central Shanghai. The last category of lines on the Shanghai Metro are the rather odd suburban lines. These lines, like I discussed in my Mexico City Metro video, are like Mexico City's suburban lines, in that they tend to dead end at the edge of the central part of the city and force you to change lines. They really should be extended or merged with existing lines to allow continuous regional travel, even if, like on line 11, trains don't all traverse the entire length of the corridor. The first of these is the humble Line 5, which opened in 2003 and essentially extends Line 1 southwest 33 kilometers with 19 stations, with the shorter western branch into an industrial area, and a longer southern one that remains the only line to serve the city's Fangxiang district. Interestingly, the parts of the line closer to the city center are elevated, while the most suburban extents of the southern branch are underground. Line 5 moves around 200,000 riders a day on a mix of 6 and 4 car Type C trains, which operate uniquely under GOA3 operation, where the train drives itself but an onboard guard handles the doors. Something which might surprise people is that parts of Line 5 are actually speed restricted due to noise complaints from local residents. There's also actually quite a bit of history about how Line 5 came to be with regards to municipal politics, but I won't bore you with that right now, perhaps in a video in the future. Also moving around 200,000 riders a day is Line 16, which opened in 2013 and initially used 3-car Type A trains, which were then coupled together because of high demand. While these cars are Type A, they're unusual in that they are of the suburban design, which means they have transverse seats and only 3 doors per side per car. This can actually happen with the 3 doors as a subset of the usual 5, which is a neat feature of the Type A car design that allows the Airport Express and Tengcheng lines in Hong Kong to both use the same platforms with screened doors, despite having different numbers of doors. New 6-car trains have actually been introduced to the line as well, so we'll actually see the coupling of shorter trains less and less. Uniquely, Line 16 also uses 1500-volt DC third rail, albeit with overhead catenary in the depot. This line actually has the widest stop spacing in the system, with 13 stations on its roughly 60-kilometer route that travels from Longyang Road and a connection with the Pudong Maglev and other metro lines far southeast of the city to a massive artificial circular lake surrounded by high-density housing, where the line is actually underground as opposed to closer to the city center. The line is also known locally for connecting to a number of attractions outside of the central city. Uniquely among Shanghai Metro lines, Line 16 has express services, with passing tracks at some stations, allowing for a rapid service that makes only 2 stops from end to end, and an express service that runs non-stop and is twice as fast as the local. Line 16 also has a higher design speed of 120 km per hour, which is actually achieved by in-service express trains. The final conventional suburban metro line, which opened in 2014, is Line 17, which also moves around 200,000 riders per day and uses 6-car Type A trains with 5 doors per side and 1500-volt DC third rail as with Line 16. Line 17's route is sparse with stations, with just 13 over 35 kilometers of track, and as with Line 16, it has a higher than normal top speed of 100 kilometers per hour. However, unlike Line 16, there are no rapid services, and like Line 5, the line is operated under semi-automated grade of automation 3. Line 17 runs west from Hongqiao Railway Station and is about half and half above and below ground, and it actually has a cross-platform transfer with Line 2 at the railway station, something you don't see often on this system. Oh, and I do want to point out that when you have to start resorting to colors like light brown for your metro lines, you have a pretty big system. The last 2 suburban lines aren't conventional metro lines, but they do bear mentioning. One is the Pudong Transrapid Maglev, which has been running 3-car maglev trains at the highest rail service speeds in the world, up to 431 km per hour since 2003. The fact that the maglev doesn't go to the city center and instead terminates at the not-so-central Longyang Road seems annoying at first, until you realize that you just cut an over 40-minute ride on Line 2 down to just 8 minutes. The speed on the line, however, is counteracted by the extreme cost of using it, which at 50 RMB is about 10 times the cost to ride the comparable Line 2, and limits regular use by residents and workers in the area. The other oddball suburban line is the Pujiang line, which is a 7-kilometer 6-station third rail-powered Innovia automated people mover line which opened in 2018. the Pujiang line essentially extends Line 8 to the south on a fully elevated guideway. While it's hardly the only place to see it, the mix of industry, massive roads and railways, and high-rise tower blocks is a good way to see the chaos of Shanghai. Now, as you might imagine, Shanghai is building tons of extensions and new lines, so let's fly through the stuff that's currently under construction. A lot more has been planned and proposed, but if I talked about all of it, we'd be here a week. First, the extensions. Line 2 will be extended one station west, while Line 12 will be extended west to Line 9 on its west end. Line 13 will be extended south on its west end to connect with Line 17, while also being extended east on its eastern end. And Line 17 will also be extended west, while Line 18 will also be extended to Line 1, with, you guessed it, a western extension. The new lines are also very interesting, with a mix of new urban and suburban routes that provide far more crosstown and suburban connections. Line 19 will be a new north-south line that will parallel and relieve the southern portion of Line 8 and the northern portion of Line 1, with 6-car A-type trains. There will also be a new Line 18 style flanker line called Line 20, which will operate 6-car A-type trains on a route cutting across northern Shanghai, initially between Line 1 and just west of Shanghai West Railway Station. A new express line with passing loops similar to Line 16, albeit without the third rail, but with the 6-car Type A trains, will be introduced in the form of Line 21, which will act as an eastern orbital line connecting the various parts of Pudong as well as the airport. And then there was the new Line 23, another line with 6-car A-type trains which will run south from Line 4 to the southwest, connecting to Lines 15 and 5 further along their routes, while also replacing the elevated west branch of Line 5 with a new tunneled section west of the river. The last new line currently under construction is the Chongming line, which will also be like Line 16 with 6-car suburban Type A trains, but in this case without the third rail or passing loops, and a slightly higher top speed. The entire route will be underground and will connect to the several islands to Shanghai's northeast with a number of new stations. This tendency to build even suburban lines underground seems needless, and it would be nice to see well-designed at-grade and elevated corridors instead. Now, despite all of these great new lines, the Shanghai Metro still has a big problem. It needs more capacity and faster service. At present, numerous lines on this system take over an hour and a half to traverse end to end, and the city's center is becoming completely saturated with subways. And the Shanghai Suburban Railway, which is extremely weird, tries to address some of it. Now, as it turns out, Lines 16 and 17 of the Metro, as well as the Chongming line, are all considered part of the Suburban Railway. But they're designed like metros, don't through run across the region, and are disconnected. There is, however, also the existing Jinshan Suburban Rail Line, which goes to the southwest from Shanghai Railway Station on track electrified with 25,000 volt AC power, and with a top speed of 160 km per hour with multiple service patterns, while also accepting the Shanghai Metro card. And so as it turns out, this line is the blueprint for a number of future lines, which upon first glance, somewhat unusually, are built to the standards of the National High-Speed Rail Network. This actually makes sense when you think about it, because most of China's modern mainline passenger rail experience these days is in high-speed rail, and the high-speed rail lines are built with high-capacity signaling and bog-standard gauge and electrification. The influence here includes everything from the infrastructure to rolling stock design, which looks fast and has 8 cars per train. In the spirit of the Jinshan line, several new corridors are being built. First of these is the Airport Link, which will travel from Pudong Airport to Hongqiao Airport on a mostly underground alignment with high speeds and few stations, hopefully relieving some of the traffic on Line 2 while also providing a useful link to Pudong Airport and a new Shanghai East station for high-speed trains, built intercompatible with the suburban railway. There's also the potential for a link onto this line from the Jinshan line. You'll also have the Jiamin line, which will have passing loops and will be mostly underground, traveling north and south from Hongqiao Station, including up to the end of the northern branch of Line 11, connecting up to a network of higher speed railway lines in neighboring cities and municipalities in the future. And there will be an additional corridor south from Pudong Airport to Lianggang on the north side of the artificial lake served by Line 16, and as with the Jiamin line, services will interoperate between it and the airport link. In the future, there's also the Shanghai Suzhou Jiaxing Railway that'll connect the 3 neighboring cities, the first section of which is also called the Shanghai Demonstration Area Line and is currently under construction. Now, while these new suburban lines are a positive step, particularly by starting to build the west and south segments of a new outer loop line, they have a lot of issues. For one, there are more misconnections, with no link between the Airport Link and Line 16, which is meant to be part of the suburban railway, and nothing heading to the north and east of the city to connect to the Chongming line and serve those regions of the city. At the same time, while the suburbs will be well connected by suburban rail and the city with metro, there is not nearly enough crossover to help people avoid annoying transfers. Ultimately, what I think Shanghai needs to do is build a series of 4 or 5 lines with 8 or 10 car Type A trains that head through the city center, which have cross-platform transfers between them and express service with passing loops, something which other Chinese cities like Guangzhou and Chengdu are already doing, not to mention cities internationally like Seoul and Delhi. And while that's not in the cards quite yet, what is clear is that the Shanghai Metro, express service or not, is among the greatest engineering achievements humanity has ever created. And it's getting even bigger. And if you're interested in how Shanghai was able to build the massive metro system we just spent the past 20 minutes learning all about, you should definitely check out this episode of City Beautiful's Great Cities series, which you can watch right now exclusively on Nebula, along with other episodes on great cities like Venice and Paris. Nebula is the streaming platform owned by me and my creator friends, featuring over 14,000 titles that you can watch ad-free, including exclusive and early access videos from educational creators like myself, Not Just Bikes, City Nerd, and City Beautiful. Now you can also get Nebula classes absolutely free with your base Nebula subscription, and learn from all of your favorite subject matter experts so that you too can be a master in your craft. This is one of the best ways you can support my channel and my content as a whole, and now you can get a Nebula subscription for as low as just $2.50 a month, or $30 annually, so go check out Nebula right now. A special thanks to Edison, Steven, Butane Man, Lesvidamo, Felix, Zichen, S5A0043, and JR Urbane Network for their help with footage and comments for this video.